Live, too late, we're on.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to Irons United. And of course, my name is Anton, and we are also joined by Stell. We've got a couple of guests coming on the show tonight. We're going to have a lovely gentleman's debate, a lively debate. We're all friends here, so no, do you know what? It's just
well, for the moment.
But do you know what? It's interesting. We've got a lot of stuff to. We've just had a comment come in straight away saying, what is there to discuss? There's loads to discuss because you've got to think about people's different opinions on whether or not you want football to come back. Is it right for football to come back? Where does that leave the Premier League? If you look around the world, other leagues are cancelling and awarding. The French League today announced that PSG were going to be the champions of the French League. And in Holland, they cancelled the league but never awarded the championship to Ajax, but they gave Ajax the Champions League position. So there's a lot of interesting debate around whether or not the football should come back. Still, you got anything you want to say, I suppose, before we bring the guys on?
No, I mean, there's a lot to be said for both sides. I'm kind of, you've got to think about, it's interesting what Tim's put up. You've got to think about lives before football, I guess. But I think there's an argument for both sides, and if we can, it'll be an interesting debate tonight because we've got two gentlemen who are West Ham through and through. They're both older than me.
Unlike you, Still.
Unlike you Kilmarnock fan, they've got really good opinions, and I think it'd be interesting to have a proper debate about it. So. Shall we bring them on and introduce them?
We shall do. Listen, before we bring them on, what we'll do is I'm going to sit in the background. I'm going to be here, but I'm going to man the chat. And if there's anything interesting, I'll nip in every now and then and get the point across, etc. But still, you're going to be kind of hosting it. We've got another crazy guy back in the chat. So let's just get him. I just
blocked him. So he's
blocked him. Good. So that's fine. He's gone. Okay, so we'll bring in Slaps and Nigel Can. How are you all both?
So you're all right.
Yeah, not bad, Nige. Of course, people have seen you on the channel before. You've been on quite a few times. So, Nigel, do you want to just do a brief introduction, and then obviously we'll pass over to yourself, Slaps.
Okay. What, you want me to introduce myself?
Yeah, you have to, mate.
People might not know who you are.
Fucking hell. I'm Nigel from More Than Just a Podcast, which is a podcast that we do without seeing us.
AKA the Shed Man.
I'm in my shed.
Are you? Did you convert it in the end?
No, this is the old shed. This is the last time
I can't hear Nigel
from this shed.
Can you not hear him?
No.
You can't hear Nigel?
Oh, this is all interesting. Slaps, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you and I can hear Stell, but I can't hear Nigel.
We can hear you.
Right, hold on a second then. What we'll do is we'll
Have you got a set of earphones, mate?
Let's give this a whirl.
Can
you hear now?
No, I can't hear him. I can hear him on Kim's phone, but in the background out there, but I can't hear him here.
That's interesting.
Can you hear me
This
now?
is live after all.
Yeah,
it is live.
Can you hear? Hello?
Well, I can hear you. You might need to bring King's phone a bit closer to you then, mate.
Okay, cool. Yeah, bring it over, Kim.
Yeah. Until we get this resolved, we will just carry on as normal. We are live. We are amateurs. There's nothing else for it. As Nigel says, nobody watches our channel. So
that's why I come here. It's only Milton down under.
I can hear you on Kim's phone, but I can't hear you on my phone.
Oh, really? That's really weird, mate. But you can hear the rest of us, yeah?
I can hear you and Anton, but I can only hear Nigel on Kim's phone.
That is odd. What if I come out and see what happens there? Maybe.
Hold on a second. What I might do is while we're going to do this, Slaps, have you still got the link that Stell sent you?
Oh, we had untold trouble getting yourself live on that. Don't need that, Daniel. I'll have to shoot myself.
Right, we'll give this a whirlwind. We'll give this a whirlwind, but you might need to. I know it's going to be a pain in the arse, but we can hear a bit of back noise coming from Kim's phone.
Mate, you got any earphones? You got any earphones?
Yeah.
Might be. All right. Well, let's give this a try and see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Cool.
So I will pass over to you, Stel. Like I said, I'll introduce. I'll do the chat and nip in every now and then, and
right.
We'll go from there.
Cool. Okay, mate. Right, lads. So the chat tonight it's all about whether football should restart or not. We've been hearing the other day that the French league have closed down. The government has decided that it's null and void, and they won't be looking to play football again until August, September time. And one of the FIFA medical chiefs earlier this week suggested that there shouldn't be any football being played at all. And he was, it sounded as if he was a little bit alarmed that football was even being considered at the moment. So I know you guys have got an argument for and against. So who should we start with? Slaps, let's start with you, mate. I can't hear you now,
Hold on a minute, he's muted. Hold on. Let's unmute him.
Let's unmute him.
Their mic, Slaps, your mic isn't connected. We'll go over to Nigel. Nigel, go for it.
Ooh, well, yeah, I mean, I've just put out, perhaps I'm going to defend the indefensible here, but for me, I think the league should be finished as and when. I think that probably be sometime in June. We've already had 7 weeks of being told to stay at home. I won't call it lockdown because it's not lockdown. Loads of people are working. And you know, for that reason, I think there's about 4 or 5 reasons really why I think football can crack on. One thing is the players want to be paid their wages. They're not willing to take cuts. We've seen, you know, them go through. Clubs cannot keep paying their wages forever with no income. And if they don't play football, they ain't getting an income. So, and I know this is money over people's things, but that needs to be brought into one of the factors. I'm not saying we should play this week. You know, I'm not saying we should play next week. I think it's another 4 or 5 weeks away. But in that time, we can see at the moment the government today, you know, it's slowly edging downwards to a point where behind closed doors, the football will be able to be played. You know, they'll probably, you know, put everybody in an hotel for 3 weeks before football starts. That's what I can see happening. And, you know, they'll find a way to get the season played. I think the season should be played out to a finish. You know, it could be finished in July or August for me, as long as they play this season, finish it first. It's season 1920. So as long as it's finished by the December the 31st, I would finish it as and when it is, you know, evidently safe. But we can't, you know, footballers, for me, there were people going to work. Last week, I sat and watched 5 geezers lay a tarmac on a road, all standing next to each other, no PPE. They were working for the local council where I live as well. And you think, well, if it's safe for those 5, I furloughed myself. You know, I would have carried on working, but my family didn't want me to. So I furloughed myself. At great cost to myself, but not bothered about that. I did it for my family. But loads of people are still going to building sites that I were on, and they're still working. And some of the big sites, Canary Wharf, you know, there's like a few thousand people on there, and nobody's saying anything about them. Yet we want to stick 30 footballers on a football pitch, and people are jumping up and down. So for me, we have to find a way when it's safe to do. You know, you got to make sure the players though have not got this. That is one thing I would say. So therefore, if they have to be locked away in an hotel for 3 weeks and be tested to make sure everything's good, then I can't see what the problem is.
Do you think, sorry Stel for jumping in there, but
no, mate, go ahead. I'm trying to get Slaps back on, so please carry on.
I've seen loads of comments and you've seen all different opinions, Nigel, as well when it comes to it. But I think there's a cost implication for getting everyone obviously tested. I think what people's argument will be is why do footballers or sports people get priority over just the general public for testing?
I think if you look at what the government have done now, they're starting to open up testing to more and more wider. They're saying that 25 million people apparently can are now fall in the bracket of being tested if they can get on the website and book a test. That is, I'm not saying at no point have I said football's a special case, but what I will argue is it is possible to be done. And for me, there's, we played football during the war when they were dropping bombs in the Blitz in the East End of London, and West Ham still played football.
Do you think there's too many comparisons to, is it the same? I'm just being devil's advocate.
What I was just highlighting that football carried on. There was a big threat in the East End of London when the bombs were dropping. They played. We've seen the photograph with the spotter on the roof, looking for the planes to fly over. And people say, "Well, you had a warning," but you try and empty 13,000 outside of Upton Park when the bombs are about to drop. When he spots the plane, they're not all going to get out, are they? So people were prepared to take the risk. For me, it's got to be played behind closed doors, and I get that upsets a lot of people. And I'm not, and by no means am I an armchair supporter. So, but if it gets the football back, and I think football will be a good thing for the country to see it. Come on, how many Netflix box sets can we really watch? To be fair, I mean, I've ended up going on YouTube. I've watched every episode of Match of the 70s, and I'm working my way into Match of the 80s now. To watch football. So. Everybody's doing football history now, aren't they? Because that's all we've got. Well, at some point, we've got to finish what we got.
Let me ask you, Nigel. I mean, the whole thing about testing, there's quite a lot of controversy at the moment that people are saying even key workers aren't being tested at the moment and they should be made a priority. So, and there was a talk today that if football was going to get back on track, then clubs or the Premier League or whoever it should be, someone in football should be paying that testing. It should be coming out of football's money. But then why make football a priority over key workers, for example? I mean,
but that's what I'm saying. The government have opened up testing now to a wider, not just key workers or whatever, to a wider audience. I read an article where they said basically 25 million people now qualify to be tested if they think they've got symptoms, that they can go on the website, book themselves in. So if you're a key worker, or if in theory, the government advice anyway is not only key workers should go to work. I'm not a key worker, but my previous work was still open. Whether that's still waiting for me when I decide to go back to work, I don't know. I don't think it will be. I think they'd have gone, well, you walked away, Nige, that's your tough luck. And it would be my tough luck. But, so therefore, if I wanted to go to work tomorrow, I could pick the phone up and say, all right, I'm coming in. And there wouldn't be a problem with that. I wouldn't need to be tested or anything.
Yeah.
You made a valid point, though, at the start when you said about, not really are we in a lockdown. The lockdown doesn't really feel like a lockdown, apart from the fact you can't go to football, you can't go to the pub, you can't go to the cinema, but you can certainly go to the park. You can meet up with friends and do a social distance, maybe whether or not you're supposed to. It's not manned, it's not policed. Like you said, many people are going to work.
West Ham Park last week. Sorry, I walked around West Ham Park last week. I go and visit my uncle. He lives on his own. So I take him his food twice a week. And then I took him to West Ham Park to have his hour exercise. And we walked around West Ham Park. And there was 20 geezers playing a game of football. And there was like park keepers and stuff. No one stopped them. There was loads of people in there. This is what I'm saying. We're not in a lockdown situation because the government never locked us down. The press used the word lockdown to describe it, and that puts a lot of people's, you think there's a lot of people that work from home, so they're not getting out and seeing. But I'm out. I take food to my mum as well once a week, so I'm getting out and about and I'm seeing what's going on. And I tell you what, in the East End of London, like Plaistow, Forest Gate, Wanstead, the areas I'm going, it is busy. And you just got to be careful, though. That's all. You got to use.
Well, I've noticed that in my local park, we've got something like 3 or 4 football pitches and a couple of rugby pitches. And the way to get people to stop playing is that the council went up there about 2 weekends ago and took all the goalposts down. and the rugby post down. They because you're absolutely right. No one was following. This lockdown is a really weird lockdown because you just don't really know. I don't think the government have been strict enough. If you look at some other countries where they've said lockdown is lockdown and there's no argument about it, in this country it seems lockdown is if you want to sort of approach. And I personally think that's wrong. We should have, if we'd have had a proper lockdown, I think maybe we may not have seen as many deaths and as many people catching the virus as they have done. Slaps is about to come back on, I hope. Yeah, he is back on, which is good. Let's get you back on. Are you there, mate?
Yeah, I'm here, but I can't. Hang on a sec.
That's it.
Yeah,
that'll do. That'll do. Don't worry about that. Keep it as it was. We're sorry you missed the conversation. I'm sorry that you missed. Sorry you missed Nigel's argument. I don't know. Can you hear us all? First of all.
Yeah.
It's Nigel. I think you need to test and see.
Nigel, say something, mate.
You've got 64 now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you bastard.
No.
Can you hear me now?
Just look down.
Can you hear Nigel?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
No.
Still can't. Wow, seriously.
Hang on. I let him take over, I think.
I don't understand that. I don't get why you can't hear Nigel. You sure you ain't blanked him out, Nigel? So
yeah,
you can't.
no. I've checked all
I've
the.
got him now. He's just come on.
Oh,
there
right.
you go.
Hey!
Yay.
Well, people, thanks for watching. That's all we have time for.
I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Right. So basically, we've just had Nigel explain part of the reason why he thinks football should come back. Just to give a brief overview, Nigel, over to Slaps, just to let him know. But basically, you're saying that when you walk around London just now, I mean, it doesn't look like a lockdown. This doesn't feel like a lockdown. There's lots of people at work. There's nothing different when you go down Canary Wharf. There's thousands of people going to their work every single day. Nigel mentioned that he went down as locally. There was a council road workers, about 5 of them laying a road, all within close proximity. So I suppose the argument really goes back over to yourself, Slaps, and what's your reasoning behind for not starting football again?
Well, my view is whether there's supposed to be a lockdown, and we know there is supposed to be, and we're currently Tim's under we're on a lockdown till the 20th of June, I think it is. So for us, there's a lockdown. So the fact that there's loads of people out, and when I walked the dog this morning, there was plenty of people out, but that's not really the argument. The point from my point of view is that the Premier League and West Ham and all the clubs want the football back as soon as possible, purely because of money requirements. And the clubs probably fear they've got to repay the Sky TV money they've been paid, and Sky obviously want to broadcast the matches. But the thing for me is that football is primarily a entertainment business. The football matches are played to entertain the crowds who want to go and watch their local team. And if the crowd aren't there, I can't see the point of playing the game. You could argue that, well, Sky will broadcast them, but then that means that people with season tickets, if they aren't going to see it live on West Ham, or if they're not going to see it live on Sky, then people without season tickets aren't going to see the games. And to my mind, the fact is that we've played, say, like, for instance, when we played Villa away, and I think we drew 0-0, and there was a fantastic home crowd there. We won't have any home crowd. And where's the home advantage with that? And will foreign players want to play, be able to play, and will they play any better or to their normal standard, or worse, with no crowd there? If you're in the entertainment business, there's nobody. What's the point? And the fact is, there's people out there who's fearing. I saw this morning, I think it's 160,000 deaths now in the UK, is it? In the USA. People are dying every day out there, and it's not my top priority. And since football's not been around and I haven't been going to games, apart from the social side of it, I don't think I've really missed it. I think I've refocused on what's important to me, and that is my friends and my family. And I'm not too fussed that the game's not being played at the moment. I do have some solutions, because I haven't just come up with an argument. whereby I say, well, football shouldn't be played and that's it. I have some alternatives that should be perhaps considered, or certainly we can talk about. But I find it's interesting that both the La Liga and is it La Liga? The French one anyway. And that's La Liga.
And the Dutch league.
The French and the Dutch have cancelled their leagues
yeah.
today, haven't they?
That's right.
Yeah, what's the point?
I mean,
I see, all right, I take the point that it could be court action. I see Lyon who were in 7th place and were in the playoff position for the Champions League, and now talk about legal action. That opens up a whole new can of worms. But I think it's far too early to be thinking about playing football when people are dying day to day out there. And we all know, I would think we all know somebody who's died from the coronavirus or during the coronavirus. And to my mind, people's lives are more important than playing a game of football.
And this is the dilemma, isn't it? The dilemma is about economics and lives. I mean, that really, in a way, is the bottom line, because there's a, that I understand that football is a business. It's a business like any other, and football wants to protect its business. And you've got UEFA on one hand, which is certainly putting in. I think they're putting a lot more pressure than we know on the leagues to complete their seasons, despite the fact that UEFA came out with, you need to let us know by the 25th of May, but they didn't sort of suggest if there'll be penalties if leagues do close down. And then immediately after, the French league said, we're not playing, or the government said, the French league is finished. So, I made the argument in my show the other day where I said, is UEFA going to penalise the likes of Paris Saint-Germain because that French league has not been completed? So UEFA have sort of pushed themselves into a corner, because you could tell that they want their league, that they want the games to be played, because they don't want any controversy over who gets into the Champions League and all that sort of stuff. So I understand that, but then, of course, as Slap said, you got the other side of the coin. Football is an entertainment business. You're absolutely right, which is why TV companies pay billions of pounds to actually televise football around the world. But how entertaining is it going to be when you don't have a crowd there? And Nigel, is it more important to get the leagues finished because of money, or because of the whole issue about what might happen if leagues don't finish? Is it an ethical issue? Is it an economic issue?
I think it's all wrapped into one. I mean, for me, if they want to do it, put everybody in St George's Park, lock them down, play the games, don't even televise them, just tell us the results. If that's the case, then finish the leagues. So if it's about fans can't be there, football without fans is nothing. Let them finish. Let the league be finished, because it's 3/4 of the way done. There's a lot of resting on it. To be fair, there is a lot resting on it.
What do you think will happen then? I mean, even the FIFA chief medical officer, Michel Dohu, or whatever his name is, said the other day, football shouldn't be looking, leagues shouldn't be looking to play football at this stage in time.
But hold up, football's not talking about playing now and today, are they? And in a month or 5-6 weeks times, we don't know what the state of play is, do we?
That's true. That's true.
So therefore, if you're looking at the trajectory is on a downward slope, yeah.
No, it's on a downward slope at the moment, because the NHS has been protected because of the lockdown. As soon as the lockdown's released, it's inevitable.
But they can play football. But this is the thing. It's not a lockdown. There's no such thing as a lockdown for the general population. The government say you can go to work if you can't work from home. That was what we were told. We can go to work. I could go to work. I can't do my job from home. I can't do it. I have to be on a building site or whatever. Well, then I'm entitled to go to work. But can I do my job and stay 2 meters away from people, or is it high density? I was willing to go to work. My family talked me out of it, and so, I would have gone, because the government is not saying for people like me, do not go to work. That is not what they're saying.
Go on, Slaps. Go on. What are you going to say?
The thing Well, you might be able to go to work, but for me, for my period, Kim is in a high risk group, so she can't go to work, and I'm not going to work because firstly, I'm shielding her. Secondly, I'm a cabbie, and we've been told that we can only go to work if we disinfect our cab completely every single time, which is unrealistic. You can't do that.
Yeah.
And you can't work from home as a taxi driver, but there's no business out there. I've got a friend who's working because he's got to work. He's got to pay his mortgage. He's not going to get no help from the government, and he's got a car and HP and all this, and he can't survive with the money that would be done. He worked 12 hours the other day and took £16. There's no call for taxis out there.
No.
Now, you argue there's no lockdown, and I don't want to get into a discussion about the pandemic, but my view is that you're going to supermarkets, there are only allowing so many people in. You can't go to lots of different places you'll go to get a haircut, which is why my barnet's growing, but that's a different story. You can't go to lots of different places. But why should football be allowed to play again when there's no rugby, there's no horse racing, there's no.
Yeah, but the world, I mean, once it's safe to do, if the footballers are safe and they're tested and they're clear of the virus, as I said, you can put them away in an hotel for 2-3 weeks. You can put them over in St George's Park, lock them down. And I'm not talking about one team. The whole Premier League could probably be incorporated in St George's Park, and they could play the games there. You don't need to play the games in football stadiums. It's all about getting the games played. That's what I said. If that's the case, if people are worried about fans turning up, take it somewhere where they're not. Don't even tell them. Tell them after. Play the games.
But does that feel like football to you, mate? I mean,
it ain't football, but we're living in a strange time, isn't it? When I'm not going to work, we're having to make sacrifices. That is a sacrifice, but it gets it finished. It gets it done.
It kind of goes back to the point of how important is football for it to have to finish. I think that's the bottom line here. It's like, how important do we think football is for it to be better than any other sport out there? Because we're not hearing this, unless I'm mistaken, we're not hearing this from other sports. We're not hearing from rugby or any other sport to say we've got to finish the league. And I think the bottom line is it's because there's so much money involved in football that it feels like almost, the leagues feel like they're obliged, and UEFA feels like it's pushing the leagues to finish the football as well. But then when FIFA come out, when the FIFA medical officer comes out and says you shouldn't be thinking about this, because one of the points he made in his interview the other day was that there's a fear that if football does return, then even if it is behind closed doors, it could cause a second spike in the pandemic. And then Brady said in her article at the weekend that apparently even if you play a game behind closed doors, you still need about 500 staff to man an empty stadium. I don't know if that's true or not, but I don't know.
I'm going to jump over to some comments before you move on, because there's quite a few here. Neil from Down Under, of course, is back. He's saying that Shinzo Abe is saying unless there's a vaccine for COVID-19 available, we can't see the Olympics going ahead in 21. So what does that say about all the different groups that control football? Jazz is back in. It's all about Liverpool. Otherwise, league should have ended with Liverpool getting title and Euro positions being honoured. No one gets relegated, and top 3 from division get promoted. So 23 clubs in the league. Jazz is also saying that he's very busy at work just now.
See, can we just go back to that point 1 second? Having an increased Premier League to me is I think is totally the wrong thing. I think that would be wrong. I think that's probably the worst thing that could happen, because what will happen this season after? Does that mean that you have to relegate 5 teams in order to get it back to? I think that's awful. I mean, I do get what you're saying, Nigel. Because I'm kind of more inclined to say football should be scrapped until later in the year. But I totally get what you're saying about it should be finished. But should it be finished because of is it because of money, or is it because it's more than money? Will it cause more problems, say legally,
I think this is the thing for me.
football was cancelled.
I don't think money. For me, it ain't about it's for the money. And a lot of people use that as a stick to beat the Premier League with. They only want to finish it with the money. I think they want to finish it for a whole host of reasons. I think partially it is because of money, but then again, let's face it. We all know football's a business now. Yeah, and we're seeing business after business going under. If it's not safe to play football now, how do we know it's going to be safe in 6 months? The players are still taking full pay. This is another thing. Players are still taking virtually full pay. They've set aside 20%, which they'll get when the money when this money starts coming in. So if they turn around and say, do you know what, I don't think it's safe to play football, furlough the bloody lot of them, sticking on the $2,500 a month that the government's giving maximum out to people, and let's see what they've got to say, because football clubs, like it or not, I'm not a fan of football being a business, but like it or not, it is a business now. Yeah. And how long can a football club keep paying the wages of football players even at 80%? How long can it go on? Because if you're saying you can't play football now and we can't play it in June, well, what if you can't play it in September? What if you can't play it in October? They're still getting paid. Where's the money going to come from for football to come back? And I know it's a side issue, but the thing is, we've allowed football to become the business it is now. It is a big business. So you either let the business die. Is that what we want? And I get what people saying. There's people dying and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one because, I do miss football. I must admit, I do miss it. Would I enjoy it if I was watching it, at home? I've watched games when I haven't been able to make a game. I've watched it at home. Yeah. But then I'm getting excited by the atmosphere that's being created, even if I am watching it from home. I get excited by that. Would I be as excited if I'm watching a game? I mean, I'm sure we've all been to pre-season games and under 23 games and stuff like that, where there's 10 people there, and it can be quite turgid. You sort of like how the player's going to react to that.
But it's the same for everyone, isn't it? And this is the thing. It's the same for every team. If you're all playing behind closed doors, every team's doing it. For me, it's about getting it done. And then they can, if they have to start the next season behind closed doors, it is. We know at some point, it will change. The thing is, what they're saying is, and this is the thing, how far do we go, is they're saying that this virus could reappear in the winter because there's no vaccine. Yeah. They had SARS and MERS, which are like other COVID type or coronaviruses. They still ain't got vaccines for them.
Yeah.
So you can't sit around and wait for vaccine.
Well, Slap, are you with us, Slaps? No, he's gone.
He's gone again.
Oh no! Because he really pushed for tonight to happen, but we might have to do it again another day. Sorry. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Nigel, that this virus could come again. But are we not running the risk of this virus coming back sooner rather than later? If things because what will happen if football comes back on? Let's say for argument's sake, football returns. What will then happen if other sports turn around and say, right, okay, football's happening, we want our sport to come back, and we want our sport to come back, and all of a sudden, before we're ready for it, all of a sudden we've got a whole load of other sports coming back as well. I mean, isn't that the dangerous element of it, that football could set a new precedent where all of a sudden, it's football, then it's rugby, then it's, I don't know, cricket, then whatever sport it is.
I suppose a good question to add to that one though is what makes football different to other sports.
Do it then. Play cricket behind closed doors. I mean, generally, listen, I went to a county cricket match once at Essex when I was a kid, and Jesus Christ, I think there was 15 of us there. On the one-day games, you'd get a big crowd. But literally, there was 15 of us watching, a county cricket match. County cricket is virtually played behind closed doors anyway. It can be played, and I get that. If you want the sport to continue and the people need to play, You either sit them at home and they don't play nothing, or they play and you don't have the people there until it's safe to have the people there. But golf, you could send the golfers out in a pair or singular and they caddy themselves. It can be done with no crowds.
But that's not a contact sport. Golf, cricket's not a contact sport. Golf is not a contact sport. Football is. And I think that's the biggest difference, isn't it, really? Where certain sports, you could argue if it's played in a particular way.
It's not about the testing, to be fair. As long as the players are tested and they are free, and that you can verify that they are free of the virus and you know where they've been for the previous 14 odd days, then they can do that, because that is, I know people that have had the virus and gone back to work. Why? Because they don't need lockdown anymore.
That's an interesting thing. You just said, if you know where the players have been, look at what some of these players have done. I can't remember who it was. Is it the guy from Everton or somewhere where he had a bloody party the other day?
Moise Kean,
and it's like, mate,
Kyle Walker from Man City. He's at a party.
He was another example. Yeah, and there you go. Yeah. And then you're sort of like, because footballers, as much as we love watching them play, we know they can be absolute arseholes at the same time. And but this might give them.
But take them away then, isn't it? Because that's what they do in cricket. When England goes and plays in Australia for 3 months, they're away from their families for 3 months in hotels. Well, surely footballers can lock down for a month to 6 weeks, finish.
They can't lock themselves down for a minute, mate.
Well, and that's why I'm saying you have to go to like somewhere like St George's Park. I think it's been muted. They can go and do it. They can put them down, and you basically have like a football circus. Where
a football tournament, in it. It's like back in the school days.
Just do it. I mean, at the end of the day, what if they don't? Then they say right, no football till November. How'd you start the season then?
I do agree with you, Nigel. There's an element of I do want this season to be finished, but I want it to be done. I'm happy to wait. Because like you said, if they say there's no football until September, October, November, then if there is going to be football then finish the 8 or 9 games that there is.
Listen, preferably, I'd rather if they were willing to wait. I wrote an article weeks ago, but West Ham Till I Die, where I said, what you got to remember is you got the World Cup in Qatar in 2022. I mean, aren't they lucky they didn't have that this year? Because that would have been funny. They buy the World Cup and then they can't even have it. That would have been good. But anyway, in 2022, we got the World Cup happening in December. So actually, what they could do is finish this season in November and December, and then start the next season in January, play that season. You could have a midsummer break or play it till like October, have a break for the 2021s, go back and then start 2022. And then you finish that, you go from January to October, and then you straight into the World Cup. Because in 2022, in December, the Premier League's got a problem anyway, because the World Cup's happening.
But so do you think this is a blessing sorry, my camera's gone, but I hope you can still hear me.
Yeah.
Do you think this is a blessing in disguise then? That
camera
maybe...
Yeah. No, what I'm saying is football. If the football authority sat down and looked forward and looked at that World Cup, because they've always acknowledged that there's going to be a problem with the big leagues in Europe in 2022 in the December with this, where they've got to stop the season. They're going to have to release the players sometime in November, because you've got to have normally 3-4 weeks before a World Cup tournament. The tournament finishes, I think, December the 21st. Are we going to expect the players to be back for Boxing Day football? Say England get to the semi-final or the final like we did last time. Are we going to have players finishing in the 20th in Qatar and then flying straight back? Of course that ain't going to happen. So what do you do? You're going to stop the league.
But this does depend on of course all depend on if or not we hit a second peak without a virus. Because if a second peak kicks in,
that's blown it out of the water.
But so therefore finish this season in October, November, stop again in December, and start the next season in January through 2021.
Okay, well that's a good point then, Nigel. If you look at finishing the season at the end of this year, then the argument for bringing football back soon, I mean, I think Project Restart is talking about a June the 8th restart. The German league is looking at May the 9th, something like that. So let's take that argument that you've put about, you know, the World Cup being in winter in a year and a half's time. Is that argument could then lie where you don't have to bring football back in June. You don't have to try and rush it back in June, July. You could say, in order to avoid hitting another coronavirus peak, let's look at returning football back in, let's say, September time, and say in September we'll finish this season in September. Now that argument, I think, stands for all of us. We'll see the end of this season. It'll finish in December, and then you start the new season in January, and then we're ready for the World Cup next winter, the following winter. That I think everyone would agree with. I think the problem is at the moment is that there's this push, or it feels like there's this push that football has to restart, and it has to restart soon. And I think none of us disagree with football having to restart. Of course, it's going to restart at one point. It's gonna. But why is there a massive need? I mean, even Sky and BT, or certainly Sky, have advocated that they won't necessarily ask for their money back for games that they haven't televised, but they'll look to negotiate to televise more games the following season. So if that's the case, then okay, I think above all this, I think the footballers should say we will stop being paid for now. In fact, not sort of being just having their wages sort of cut and then paid back in full later. They should take the hit. Look at, is it Roma that have taken 100% hit in their salaries?
Did Juve not do that? I thought.
Was it Juve? It was one of the Italian teams who've said, we're not being paid. What we'll do is we're not asking for our money to be paid later. We're saying we will not be paid, which is the decent thing to do. Footballers, and I know further down the leagues, you can't have that because, footballers further down the leagues don't get paid the sort of money that Premier League players do. But we can help out, football could help itself, can't it? If people agree, if the players agree not to be paid, properly not paid, not just having their salaries cut for now and then repaid later. If the players agree not to be paid for, say, 3 months, that saves money for clubs. If the TV companies are saying we won't ask for any money back so long as we negotiate a new deal to televise more games next season, that bit's sorted out as well. We can not have to rush football back until, say, September, October time, which means that we do finish the league at the end of this calendar year. And as you said, Nigel, then we're ready to play a full season and then have it back for and then the World Cup. That kind of all ties in. And then there's no need for us to. My gut tells me we're just rushing football back more because of the money that's involved than anything else.
I think Nigel, someone in the comments has made about the players' contracts.
Right.
I think, that's it. So the problem is, I think June the 31st naturally is when players' contracts finish. But obviously, that's only players that are out of contract. Now, the problem West Ham have got as well is they've got Souček on loan. That loan will expire probably June the 31st. Now, we're due to buy him, but only if we're a Premier League team. If we're finishing the league, we don't know if we're going to be a Premier League team or not. So how can we buy him?
Yeah, agreed to that. But you kind of extend players' contract. People that are on loan or people come to the end of their season, you extend their contracts and say it's extended until the end of the calendar year, because we feel that if football comes back at the end of the calendar year, there's more chance of the coronavirus not returning for another spike. Sorry. It kind of makes sense to me, and it kind of bears out what you're saying about football looking forward and being ready for the World Cup, which is going to piss us all off anyway. The fact that it's being played over, at winter rather than in the summer, because we all look forward to a summer World Cup, don't we?
Yeah.
So given that the rules have changed, to host a World Cup in the winter, then let's just call it a day for now and say, okay, we won't cancel the season, but we'll postpone it. But we'll postpone it until a time that feels right for everyone. September time, maybe.
Can I just put a point on this though? Does it not? Do every league in Europe, big league, have until May the 25th to let UEFA know how they want to finalise the league?
That's what UEFA.
Does that mean that they can even put the delay in so far ahead? So would they accept? Would the kings of UEFA accept a September, October, November start?
Well, this is the argument, mate. This is the argument. I think this is why I said earlier. I think UEFA are putting an awful lot more pressure than we probably realise on the leagues. I think they're. I mean, if you remember the start of this, UEFA basically threatened leagues around Europe that if they decided to finish their seasons, they threatened that teams will not participate in their competitions. That's what they said like 4 or 5 weeks ago. And now they've got PSG who are out. There's a good chance that the Italian league may or may not return. Spanish league may or may not return. Yeah, can you imagine them keeping the likes of Juve, Barcelona, Real Madrid, PSG out of their competitions? I doubt it very much. There's no way they'll do that. There's no way. So I think UEFA's making a mockery of this. And I think it's probably down to UEFA putting more pressure than they should do on the leagues to finish sooner rather than later. So I think you're right, Anton. I don't think they will accept it. But they're on a hiding to nothing.
That's what I was just going to say. Are UEFA trying to act like the big dogs in this situation when in actual fact they're absolutely nothing in this situation, and football will bite back? The clubs will bite back at them and go, well, we don't want to play. Is this an opportunity for this new league, the European League one?
Yeah. There's been talk for so long about creating this new European Super League that teams might turn around and say, "On your bike, UEFA." I don't know, Nigel. I don't know if you think the same, mate, or if you know any different.
No, the thing about the European Super League, believe it or not, it was one of the arguments I made to not move to the London Stadium. I believe sooner or later that there will be a European Super League, and once the Premier League loses the top 4 or 5 clubs out of it, what are we going to be left with here? Are we going to be left with a second-rate tournament?
Yeah.
So in which case, we were moving to that stadium. I thought it would happen before 2020, to be fair. So I got that bit wrong, to be honest. I'll hold my hands up. I thought, but by now they would have put it. But UEFA keep changing European tournaments because of the threat of the European Super League. Like they're bringing in this third UEFA tournament. There's talk now. I read somewhere that the Champions League may be done on a cumulative points that you've achieved over the previous 4 seasons. Therefore, what they're saying is, Chelsea, Arsenal keep falling out for an odd season. Man United are falling out for an odd season. But if we do Champions League qualification over the previous 4 years, not the previous season, the chances are that they'll be in, and then it keeps the Champions League for the big boys. Yeah. The UEFA Cup will be the UEFA League, and then there'll be a UEFA Conference tournament, which will be for like the also-rans like us.
So they're scrapping at all costs to keep their competitions alive and kicking.
They're scrapping to keep the big clubs in UEFA because, there's talk, some of the clubs. Look at Paris Saint-Germain. Yeah, they can shut the French league down. Why? Because it's a one-horse race.
Yeah.
It's a one-horse race. So they can shut that league down. The problem why it's difficult with the Premier League is, well, Liverpool have run away with it, so it has been a bit of a one-horse race. But look at the Champions League. You've got 7 clubs, 8 clubs possible for the next 3 spots.
But I think the thing is, you made the valid point at the start where we're not really in a lockdown. What kind of country do we live in? We live in a democracy. But when you go to other countries and you're told what to do, you do it. Like you're getting fined if you're out in the streets. If you're doing something that's wrong against the government, you're told you're not doing that or face a fine or you'll get arrested. Whereas we live in this country. So it's like, you've seen certain retailers starting to open back up again because they've seen that there's an opportunity there. They can put in distancing in place. And I can't help but think that the Premier League will see that opportunity. And we may find ourselves in a situation that maybe Germany are in. So there may be a window that we could open back up. The Premier League starts again. They try and ram the games home, and then we have to close down again. But they've had this season overdone, because I can't foresee that we're a country with the highest number of deaths in Europe from this disease. But we're also a country that don't follow rules and regulations that well either.
Yeah.
So therefore,
well, you say that. I mean, I thought it was a perfectly British way of doing it. That Prime Minister stood up in front of us, said, "I'd like you not to all go out, please."
But
Where
that's the problem.
In Italy and Spain, it's like, you lot ain't going out. We're going to nick you if you go out.
And
but in this country, it was like very polite. It was like, please don't go out. Please don't go down the pub.
That has been the exact problem. That has been the exact problem because, and I've been saying it to my other half throughout this whole thing is we've not been given a clear directive. It's please can you, if it's all right with you, please can you, rather than no fucking way, you're staying indoors and that's that. And I think other countries have been, and it's really funny because I know this isn't a politics show, but it's really funny how we all mocked the Chinese when Wuhan got the coronavirus, and we were seeing on TV in news reports that they were literally dragging people back in their homes and saying, "You're not going out." There was one old man that was being given food through his locked gate, because that's as far as he could get. And we were laughing, going, "Oh, look at the silly Chinese." And now, we're being laughed at because you're absolutely right, Nigel. We've done the British thing by going, "Please, can you, if you don't mind," rather than going, "You're in lockdown, no ifs or buts," because maybe we may have hit the peak and not had so many deaths and as we have, a lot quicker.
The problem is, I know it's not a coronavirus show, but
I know.
If we'd have had more rain, I think it'd have been better because
it would have been better.
Saturday, I queued for an hour to get into Sainsbury's to get food for my uncle, and then when I have to go twice a week, so when it was raining Tuesday, I quickly shot out and because I knew there wouldn't be a queue, and I just walked straight in the rain through into Sainsbury's. So the government got caught out because the weather was too nice. They should have waited for the rain.
But let's bring this back to football. I mean, look, I don't think any of us disagree that football should return. I think, obviously we'd love it to return as quickly as it possibly can do. But bringing it back, trying to do Project Restart and bringing it back in June, Nigel, is that really the right thing to do?
Oh, so the way I see it is, it's going to take you a month. But when you say we're going to start the league, you can't say we're going to start the league next week. Yeah, because the players have got to have a training schedule. They've got to step it up. They can't just walk in from lockdown to playing football. So you're going to have a month. So in a way, I can sort of see perhaps they're trying to second guess the government here. Let's say June the 8th is 5 weeks away. We know next week the government's going to make another announcement on what do we do with the next 3 weeks. Even if they go another 3 weeks, that still means it'll be June the 8th is a week or so after that. The next 3 weeks. June the 8th is 5 weeks away.
Yeah.
So therefore, they could be preempting it. Now, it could be that the government then ease it, see what the figures do. Now, if it starts creeping back up, for me, there's no way football can come back.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. So we exit that we can, but football can prepare itself to start on June the 8th. But if it's loosened and then the figures start creeping back up, football has to be pushed and they'll have to deal with it then. And this is the thing. I'm not arguing that football should come back and it should come back now. I'm saying football should come back when it's safe and finished the season that we've got.
I think with that, we all agree. So I think it's really the argument of, football should come back, but when rather than, and for me, what we've just discussed, if it comes back later in the year, will I miss it? Yeah, of course. I miss the camaraderie. I miss the banter. I miss, sort of getting ready for a game, the excitement. I mean, even though let's not go into, is our new stadium a decent stadium for football, etc. There's still there's still banter that's had, before and after the game. I miss all that, but yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to risk my life to do it. And I don't think anyone would do.
There's another thing that I was thinking that realistically that we could bring up is what we've got to look at as well off the back of this is you've got something like the supporters club. Our memberships are coming up to renewal.
Yeah.
are people going to renew their memberships to supporters club? While the supporters club's not running, the problem is they're still paying out for Castle Street, some membership money and whatever, So what I would say to people is, please renew your supporters club membership.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm,
renew your supporters club membership just to keep it going, because they're going to need money
Good
just
point,
to
good
tick
point.
over.
Mhm.
And all these sidelines, the businesses that feed off of football are going to be having a problem.
Mhm,
I get the thing is about businesses. All businesses are having a trouble. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what business I'm going to have when I go back. I will just have to do what I do and make a bit of money however I've always done.
We'll eat your pies, mate. You know that.
But
usually
you
for
pay for them.
Yeah, I was going to say usually for free when they're really
for
cold.
free at the end of the game. Well, what do you want for nothing? Dear, you want them up as well. Bloody hell, you'll be wanting liquor next. Dear.
Oh no, don't want to do that shit. Okay.
But so there's a lot of things to consider. But if the way I see it is that if we're on an exit strategy and we're coming out, I see no reason why football cannot resume in June. And it makes sense, really, if you think about it, for the Premier League to start preparing for that June the 8th date now, get the players ready, and then on June the 7th, they can pull the plug.
Yeah.
But because we're being run by the daily death figures. I know it's a horrible thing to say, but this is what it's sort of the country is focusing. How many died today? How many died today? We want to see it going down and down and down and down and down. So in 5 weeks' time, we want to be seeing less than 100 a day.
Yeah. And do you not think that maybe football returning with crowds won't happen until we have a vaccine in place? I think that's a given, isn't it?
Well, as I was saying, a couple of years ago they had SARS. Now it didn't come over to it; it was in China. I believe it killed a few people in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
No, apparently there's still no vaccine for SARS. Now, if SARS was a previous, I don't know if that was COVID-15 or 13, and we're on COVID-19, but this is what I've been reading is that they've had these the MERS. What Ollie MERS has got to do with it, I don't know, but there was one called MERS, and what they've not found vaccine. Vaccine could be a year to 2 year away.
Yeah, true.
So if it'll be when it'll be, and that's why I don't object to playing football behind closed doors, because at the end of the day, I know at some point in the future we will be back over there moaning about that walk. But I tell you what, won't we be glad for it though? And this is a game changer.
Well, we will. It's a game
situation.
Yeah.
This may surprise people. This situation has made me think about the owners as well, because if we do have a football club to go back to, it will be because the owners at some point have kept it running. And I will be forever Brady out, but I may think, do you know what? I think we've got to not protest, cut them some slack, and just see
that's an interesting argument for possibly another show, because I think I read recently that the protests will resume once they're able to do so. But I'm not for the board, but I kind of agree with you that weren't we all as West Ham fans, we were all wondering or thinking that it'd be West Ham who will furlough staff first. We must have all thought that, and the fact that they didn't, and the fact that they held firm and said, we'll try and generate money in another way. But it's true, isn't it? I mean,
let's get this right, yeah. Like, I think what they did was they didn't want to be the first.
Yeah.
They waited. Yeah.
And when they see the response, they thought, "Oh, better not
we
do
ain't doing
that."
this.
So
am I cutting them too much slack then?
I don't think you're cutting them too much slack, but I think a lot of other football clubs as well thought we don't want to be the first.
But there are clubs. I think there are clubs that have actually furloughed their staff, and Norwich City have just gone ahead and done it, for example. And the owner of Norwich, the Norwich have said that's how we can sustain being a football club. That's what we've got to do. Delia
Smith's not a billionaire, She ain't made that much money cooking food. But at the end of the day, what I would say though, to football clubs, especially Premier League clubs, if you furlough staff, you cannot go into the transfer market until you've paid that money back. So rather than take it as a government grant, that would be a government loan. It's cash flow for now. And then when the Premier League money starts coming back in, you pay that money back. Then you can start trading your transfers and everything else. And that's what I'll do. I don't object to furlough, but for me, football players should be furloughed. And this is the thing.
$2.5 grand a week.
Given that,
can you imagine that? From 50 grand a week to 2.5 grand a week.
There was what was the players? Was it from Bristol City? He refused. I think it was about 6 players from Bristol City refused to get furloughed. So I think the club were in discussions whether or not they had to release the player. So the player was refusing the furlough or going to get released from the club.
Yeah. But I think the PFA are telling players to refuse. The PFA is standing as a union, and it's a powerful union when you think about it. And that's our problem.
That's wrong, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that is wrong. When your average Joe is going to get maximum 2.5 grand, from being furloughed, and then the Premier League players or footballers per se are still receiving all their money. And even if it's deferred, they'll still get all their money. That kind of leaves a bit of a bad taste in the mouth, doesn't it?
But again, that's what brings me back to if the football players start saying we're not happy to play football, I don't think it's right, we need to wait. That's fine.
Don't get paid.
Don't get paid then as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because this is the thing, everybody else is taking it on the chin. We're all in it together, unless you're a Premier League footballer.
Exactly. Right, we've hit the 1 hour stage. Should we look at some comments? And I've gone right back to the top, Hank. So
I've put some on already. So I'll get to the ones we haven't had on there.
Okay.
John Stack says there has been talk of social distancing in matches which would make it non-competitive as no man marking challenges. Also talk of wearing masks. Players would feel they can't breathe properly. I've seen today that there was been a recommendation that if players do go back to training that they have to wear masks. I have seen that visually in the German league, although the German league today announced that there's a week delay on the decision whether or not the league will get the go-ahead, because obviously there's been a spike in German cases.
We got one here. Paul, thank you for coming on, mate, and thank you for promoting the show. That makes 27 people watching rather than the usual 23. So really appreciate that.
Doubled your figures. Wow.
But we're still getting more viewers than more than just the podcast.
Yeah, so we're only on to 9. Yeah.
But listen, there's a point I want to make here where you mentioned there about the owners and people talking about going back, and when we are going back to the stadium, whenever that is going to be. We don't know. This is unprecedented times, that famous word that everyone says. We don't know what we're going back to. So is it fair to be starting off the first game back with this March? I'm not saying they'll do it on the first game back, but in my opinion, it kind of hits a reset button. It's an opportunity really for people to hit the reset button on everything with regards to West Ham. And because it's not just West Ham in this situation. It's the whole Premier League. It's the whole Championship. It's the lower leagues. It stretches all the way down. We don't know if we'll come back and how many football clubs will be in existence.
That is very
That's
true.
The other thing.
Very true. And here's an interesting point that kind of links to that from Eric. What about the final league place payments and, more importantly, the richest prize in domestic football, the playoff, the Championship playoff? What happens to that money? I guess that's partly the reason why, Nigel, the leagues want to finish, don't they? They don't want to cancel the season because of that kind of thing.
Well, yeah. The thing is, us as fans, me in the past, as I said, I've been against the business of football. I don't really like the business side of football, but facing facts, that's what it is. How is that business run? It's run off of the Premier League placing money. It's run off of the club in the playoff being promoted, the £180 million game or the £200 million game with if you think about if that club goes up and then goes straight back down with the parachute payments. So, and at the end of the day, a club that runs itself on £200 million, they don't generally make a profit. Look at West Ham; they don't generally make a profit. That all goes out, in agents and players and this and that. And
bad signings and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's it. At the end of the day, people the only way our owners will ever make proper money out of West Ham is the day they sell it. Because until they sell West Ham, they ain't going to make any money out of it.
And here's a thing about money. Nathan, I really hope the season's a void all the way down to the conference. No titles, no Champions League, no relegation, no promotions. It's all about money for them, and it's a disgrace. And also, hi, Nathan, to you. So, yeah, there you go. So, but we have differing opinions about, money in football. It's put off an awful lot of genuine fans, isn't it? Or not genuine fans, but sort of old school fans, should I say? When we used to go, and it's sort of like and I think that's why we're at where we're at, isn't it? Because
football's going to have a problem when we go back, because at the end of the day, especially like West Ham, we had hardcore. I used to say we had hardcore 25,000 that would turn up. Years ago, it used to be about 17,000. Then it went up to about 25,000. So when Upton Park held 35,000, on the shittiest game, you would get 25,000 turn up. And that was the hardcore. The mugs, as I like to call, because that's people like me that turn up to anything. So then with the move and everything else, we've increased the fan base. But those people used to do stuff before they started going football regularly. Now, people have got out of the habit. We all know, innit? Football is habit forming. Why do I still go West Ham when I moan like shit? Because I've gone since I was the age of 7. It's what I know. I'm 50, 40 odd years of my life I've invested in that football club. And it ain't about the win. And this is what I say to people. It ain't about the winning. It ain't about it's about, this is my club. I'm going to go and watch them play. I know they're crap. I know what's going to happen. And it's seeing you in the supporters club after and
moaning to you.
Stuff like that.
It's when I come home and my partner says, I know the score. How unhappy are you going to be tonight? And I'm like, well, it is what it is. Why do you bother with it? Why do you bother to go when
she only knows the score because you walk in absolutely rat-arsed.
No, she actually finds out the score before I come home, so she can gauge.
She knows what mood you're going to be in.
Yeah.
See, for years I used to walk in when it was great. When I used to live a 10-minute walk, I used to walk in, and she generally knew. And like I couldn't talk to her for an hour, and then she would say to me, in the end, she brought me to my senses because it's like, I don't know why you get the And I mean, what do you mean? She went, if they lost 10-0, you would still go back next week. Exactly. What does the result matter? And you think, actually, do you know what? She's right. The result to me didn't matter whether I went or not. And that's perhaps why I am the way I am, because the result don't matter to me. It's about just that's my team. I go and cheer them on. Do I want us to win? Of course I do. If we don't win, am I that bothered? Actually, I'm not now.
But at least you've only got a 30-minute journey home.
Yes. Rather than 30 hours.
Yeah. We're really sorry that Slaps has had problems. You just put a message up there from him. He was really looking forward to this, and I promise you, Slaps, I'll call you afterwards, but we'll get him back on, mate. I promise you. Absolutely. We'll definitely redo this and get him to have his say without a shadow of a doubt. Neil, I admire you, mate. You never sleep. Neil is I'm rating now Neil our biggest Irons United fan, because the minute we go on, he's on. It doesn't matter what time of the day it is down under, he comes on. Maybe Neil's heard about you, mate, and more than just a podcast. I doubt it.
Neil does. I think
Neil's Nigel.
Actually, Neil does. Neil does. Neil does follow the podcast, and everywhere I go, I do see Neil. So I think Neil probably takes in more West Ham content than any person I know.
Yeah, and he comes back for more, just like we keep going back for more for more games.
I love the West Ham content on YouTube. It's brilliant.
Yes.
Wow, love it.
point from
Great
Robert.
bunch
What
of
happens
guys.
if one of your players gets the virus? Does the whole team get quarantined? Do they miss the rest? Well, that's an interesting point. So let's say, for argument's sake, everyone's back and under lock, lock and key, and then all of a sudden, because they'll probably have to be tested on a regular basis. Even if the idea that you suggested, Nigel, put them up in St. George's, lockdown, etc. All of a sudden, one of those players gets the virus. That means the whole of the Premier League players will be quarantined, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
And then it would be.
But that's why, though, because if you look at the virus, they say as a 14-day incubation period. Therefore, that's why you lock down for 3 weeks beforehand, and then you test them, because you would know before that. Yeah, they'd all have their individual rooms. You would know before, and you would catch it. And that's the only way it could.
Did you read the Italian player? That's
Dybala. He's had it 4 times, isn't it? Or he's
4 or 5 weeks. Yeah, and he can't shake the negative the negative one off it. So yeah, I don't know.
But
It'll be an interesting one.
The thing about this virus, that from what I can gather, is strange, is where it does affect everybody differently, and that's the problem. There are people walking around that have got it. They've had it for weeks. They don't even know they've got it. But what they are doing is, if they're going out and mixing with people, they're passing it on.
Yeah.
And that
Jazz, if choosing the best of the worst scenarios, I'd rather have 23 clubs and then you relegate 4, 5, or 6 in successive seasons rather than delay the start. I like you because you buy me loads of rums, but I don't agree with that.
I was just going to say, I think he's had too many rums tonight.
I really don't want to see the Premier League increasing. I don't know what you guys think of that, but I think that's a really bad idea.
Well, I'd have it as 22 like it used to be fair. 42 leagues, 42 games a season, 22. That's how it always used to be. And for me, we dropped it to 20 as a sop to Europe and the European games. Europe was pushing.
Was it not 20? Was it not 24 at one point?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think we had 22. We dropped it to 20. They put it back to 22. And then they did have 4 go down, 2 up 1 year, I think, to accommodate it. When it was old First Division, there was a push to get it to 18, like a lot of the top leagues. I think Germany's 18. I think Holland is 18. They were at a push to push the Premier League to 18, but I think actually the Premier League stood firm over that and said, no, we're not going to drop for that. Imagine only 18 teams in the Premier League.
I think that would be absolutely awful. Really awful. I mean, I think the season finishes too early as it is. Can you imagine?
It'd be awful, mate, because it's given us more chance of going down. That's why.
Yeah.
So, Jazz, I don't agree with you, mate, but there you go. But I'll buy you a rum when I see you next. Right. Unless there's anything else we want to mention, we've been going for over an hour. Sorry, Slaps, you are coming back on, mate, definitely. Sorry about my camera. I don't know what the fuck's going on there. But
great IT here. Great IT here. Before we go, just to let you know, in the coming, I've been toying with it for a while, but I've managed to rope my dad in. So we're going to be coming to you with a review of the 64 Cup final. My dad was at the game and he's been watching a lot of it, kind of getting it all back up in his brain. So some really, really cool stories coming out of that, from the build up to the game, when he was at the game, what it was the feeling like when we went down, what it was like when we won, etc. So we'll be doing a review of that. So make sure you tune in. That's in the coming week.
And just to let you know, Anton, we're trying to get a chap to do a new show on our channel as well. If you kind of agree to the contracts, you never know. So watch this space.
Been thrown under the bus.
What's this space?
To our 5 viewers.
He hasn't said yes yet, but I reckon.
I haven't said no either.
You haven't, no, yeah. Probably in negotiations with other social media channels.
Well, funny you should say that. You're not the first. I'll tell you. I'll tell you off air, mate. It's been a bit of an headache, actually.
Please do. We may not be the biggest, but we know.
I've just advertised. I've got a couple of things coming up. I've got.
Go on, then. Right, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I do the Hammer podcast with Cunnington. Then the next season we're going to do is 2006, 2007, which is the Tevez season, and then I'll probably put out a special where I tell the Tevez signing from start to finish the story, and I've got some nice bits on there as well that I can throw in.
Well, we
That
look
sounds good.
forward to that. It'd be even better if we get it on our channel.
Is that going to be on
there
our show?
No, I mean, once I've put it out as a podcast, I will gladly come on and
there you go.
discuss
Then
it.
there you go. We'll
And
take
discuss
that.
the
We'll take that.
Tevez
Listen,
move.
mate, listen, kill two birds with one stone, podcast it with a video in front of you,
Yeah,
and stream it at the same time. I mean,
well, we'll
what
see.
we
We'll
gonna
see. It's I mean, something I found out the other day quickly is that Tevez was actually owned by two Russians.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, who both lived in Surrey and are both no longer of this world. Both died in very strange circumstances.
Bloody hell. That sounds juicy. That sounds juicy.
So
All I'll
there
say
you go.
is, do you remember the day that those two guys signed, though?
Yes, yeah, 31st.
Were you in that kind of sense of euphoria? Did you think this was it? This was the starting point?
Well,
Because that's the way I felt. I was still a kid, though. I was still a kid then.
Quickly,
you know.
we just had we were on the up because we'd been promoted. We'd gone to the FA Cup final. We'd nearly beat Liverpool, and the euphoria of that. And we'd had a good start to the season. Yeah. And the season actually fell apart after we signed them. They were because when you look at how I've been doing the research, and after 2 games, we was top of the table.
Hayden Mullins won it. Hayden Mullins kept Mascherano. Listen, I went to that season just quickly. I went to the West Ham Man City game at the Etihad, and I think it was the season when Samaras got 2 goals against West Ham. I think he's only scored 3 goals in the Premier League, and he scored 2 of them against West Ham. And there was a call for Mascherano didn't start the game, but he came on as a sub.
When you at the Wigan game.
What one?
The Wigan game, the 3-0. Didn't I meet you there? Or was that another year?
I can't remember.
He was only 6 at the time.
I didn't know. The strange story is that we met each other years ago when he was a wee lad.
I've been to Wigan. I've been to Wigan quite a lot.
I thought it was then. It might have been. It was either the Wigan when we drew 1-1 in the Championship.
With Brian Dean.
That game. Yeah, it was either that game.
Because I was at the Brian Dean game.
Oh, perhaps it was that game I met. Well,
I don't remember.
It was even more wee. Well, obviously, yeah.
No, because I don't remember it because I was drunk.
Well,
I wasn't tiny.
You'd have been about 15, 16 then, wouldn't you?
No. What was that? 2000? I'm 36.
2003.
2003. So yeah, no.
You'd have been 18, 19. Yeah.
18. Yeah, 19. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Right, sorry, we're going back and talking personal.
Yeah, I was going to say, so let's stop these two reminiscing and when they met. But anyway, as Anton said, we've got shows coming up. We've got negotiations going on for other shows, and we'll keep bringing you content. And what we're trying to do is we're not trying to bring you content for content's sake. Anton and I keep having discussions about, we could maybe bring back the transfer show, and we're going to look at trying to do that from a different angle rather than here's the latest rumor, and we'll try and do something about transfers, but not in the usual way, because otherwise we could fill up a whole week of shows with transfers that are just never going to happen. So we're going to try and do something about that as well. But do look out for our shows, and go on, do your selling spiel. Go on, Anton. Subscribe, blah, blah, blah.
Malarkey, blah, blah, blah. That's how much we care. No, we do care.
Anyway, Nigel, it's been a pleasure. Slaps, we're really sorry, mate, that your link dropped, but we'll have you back on. Thank you all for watching. It's been quite a good evening, actually. Thank you all.
Have fun.